And now for our more grateful podcast. Welcome, listener. You have come of your own free will to the appointed place. Ross, James, and their companions have ventured beyond the Sceptred Isle to find the hidden, the wicked, and the truly horrific. The film is over. The review begins. It is time to keep your appointment with the General Folk in Hell.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, goblins and ghouls, welcome to the third episode of the General Witchfinder spin-off podcast, Folk in Hell. I'm James in Bournemouth in southern England.
I'm Ross in Dorchester in southern England, and today we're joined by a special guest. Who's there?
I am Boomer from Podcast in the Woods, hailing from Norfolk, Virginia, in the good old United States. Well, I don't know. Used to be good old. I don't know. I don't know about it anymore, but
better than us at the moment.
Well, I think the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket at the moment.
That's true.
Yeah.
Is anywhere good anymore? No.
Yeah. So Boomer gave me a bit of a geography lesson, so I've got a rough idea, at least, of what kind of side of the United States, Virginia. So I say Virginia, or has it got like a prefix on there? South Virginia?
No, it's just Virginia.
Just Virginia.
Yeah.
I'm so rubbish with my...
We do have a West Virginia, which I don't live in, just to make it nice and complicated, but that's...
But is that west of Virginia, or is that like somewhere completely different?
It's actually kind of southwest, but I don't know. Southwest Virginia doesn't quite have the same ring to it, so they just went with west.
Boomer, tell us a bit about... Podcast in the Woods, because I know about Podcast in the Woods because I am a former star. I think I can be so bold to say of one of your episodes where we talked about Bram Stoker's Dracula and the remake of Evil Dead. But yeah, tell our listeners if they're not listening, they should be. Mm-hmm. Tell us a bit about your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just started a few months back, so brand new Podcast in the Woods. And it's just a little bit silly. And, I'm kind of known for my controversial horror opinions. And so, I wanted a voice and like, hey, let's put these things out here. Let's have a good time. And so I started that. It ended up doing it by myself for a little while, but now I am joined by a wonderful co-host, Gabby. And you're right. You were the star of one of the episodes, Dracula and the Evil Dead remake, which it's funny because I got a lot of flack for that because, I had, you always have those horror fans, right? Mm-hmm. And, right after we released that, I've got a couple of emails that say, well, actually, Evil Dead is not technically. I'm like, you know what? I don't care.
Podcasts are available.
Yeah. Pick and choose it. Yeah.
But yeah, I did tell Ross when he came on that it was our classiest episode.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's the first time anything that adjective has ever been
thank you very much, James. And this time on Folk in Hell, we covered The Wailing. Okay, again, I normally play a trailer here, but this trailer's probably going to have loads of Korean in it, so make of it what you will.
I can imagine one. Go on to YouTube or something.
Yeah, exactly.
이렇게 소문이 받아온 말이오. 무슨 이유가 있는 거요? 이유가 요새 자꾸 동네에서 사람 죽어나가는 거. 그놈이랑 뭔 연관이 있는 거요? 싹 다 그 양반이 오거나 생긴 일들 아니오. 여기다 뭔 일이 다냐 그래? 여기서 다 죽어버렸어. 직접 본 거야? 한번 봤지. 맞는가? 이 뭐가 이제 이거 뭐야 이거? 아따.
자네 며칠 전에 만나면 안 되는 것을 만난 적 있지? 아내가 그곳을 건드리고 그랬어?
똑같대요 증상이 사람들이. 그놈이 자꾸 눈에 뵈는 곳은 그놈이 자꾸 찾아가고 있는 것이라.
So, The Wailing is a 2016 South Korean horror film written and directed by Na Hong-jin.
I don't. I gotta say, I feel really bad for James. I've given him loads of Korean, and I think there's some other Asian country names that are coming up in a minute.
Story of our relationship.
But he's going to do much better that job than I would have ever done. But anyway, James, go back again.
Okay. Written and directed by Na Hong-jin and starring Kwak Do-won, Hwang Jung-min, Chun Woo-hee, and was cited in the documentary Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched as an excellent example of an international, specifically Asian, folk horror. The film centers on a policeman who investigates a series of mysterious killings and illnesses in a remote South Korean village called Gokseong in order to save his daughter. According to director Na Hong-jin, this movie was made on the basis of folk religions in Korea and Nepal and on Catholic faiths. Na teamed up with Thai director Banjong... Oh, come on. Right, okay. Whew, I feel like Evil Knievel now. I'm going to have to take a run up at this one. Yeah. Here we go. Pisanthanakun. Okay. Banjong Pisanthanakun.
Well done.
Acting as the producer and screenwriting for The Medium, a supernatural horror film mockumentary. When writing the story, Na explained in an interview that The Medium was initially a sequel to The Wailing, with Hwang Jung-min's shaman character. However, this rendition did not come to light, as quoted by Na himself. The Medium has no relation to The Wailing. Therefore, not a very interesting tidbit, but these newer films have hardly any information on Wikipedia or IMDB. So please cast some slack, says Ross. Na has said, whenever I finish a film, I don't want to go anywhere near another one, which may explain the slow release of his movies. Despite being in the film industry for over 15 years, he only has 3 films to his name, which is probably more than whoever dished the shade on IMDb has ever done. Now, this review inevitably contains spoilers. Please watch this film, should you wish, before we go ahead and ruin it all for you.
There we go.
Thank you.
And I always say there we go, and it pisses me off when I'm editing it. Because
Why?
Because I feel like I'm a creature of habit, and I just hate listening to my own voice. So, The Wailing. So, Boomer, the reason I thought of you to invite you on to talk about this one is that I know you're a fan of Asian horror, and we were talking off mic beforehand that you've seen this a few times previously.
Oh.
Is that correct?
It is, yes. And a lot of times people will kind of conflate my love of Asian horror with an expertise, and that's not necessarily the same thing.
No.
I do love Asian horror, but if you expect me to come on here and talk about all the intricacies of Korean and Japanese culture, I've got a couple of tidbits, but besides that, I have no idea about the ins and outs and the different subtleties. But one thing I do, because sometimes it is opaque, and you're watching these things, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the atmosphere, or kind of a nihilistic point of view that sometimes you get in Asian horror, where, for instance, Ju-on is a great example of that. Basically, if you go anywhere near the house, you're just fucked, and that's basically the movie in a nutshell. And I really, really love that kind of mindset and approach to their filmmaking, and it just scares me. I don't know what it is. Some people with the Japanese ghosts or the shamanism that we find in here, it doesn't really do that much for them. But I find it really deeply unsettling for whatever reason, just on a visceral level. And so, I absolutely love Asian horror, but what it does though is it causes me a lot of times, if I don't understand something, I'll end up going and down a rabbit hole and researching the crap out of a film afterwards to try to find, okay, what does this mean, or what does that mean? And it just kind of broadens my horizons, and I end up usually watching these things 2 or 3 times because I'll go back with that a little bit better understanding the next time. And it, just opens up like new things every single time that I watch it. This one, like you said, though, there's not a ton of stuff out there on it. So it's just basically, you kind of watch this and it's one of those, how does this make me feel kind of films.
Yeah. I find when I'm watching films from other cultures, and in particular, I think like, from Asia, often you're watching thinking, I know I'm not getting something here, but I kind of like that kind of feeling, that kind of, so the extent of my kind of interest in Asian cinema is mainly watching Studio Ghibli stuff, things with the kids. But even when you're watching that, you know, I feel some of them you're watching, like Spirited Away, for example, you're like, you're thinking 90% of this is just going way over my head. But then you start thinking, or is it just something this individual has just made up and it's completely unimpenetrable to anyone who watches this? But it is just interesting. Because when I was watching this with my wife, and I said, "Does this make you want to go traveling?" Because when you watch this, you're like, "This is everything about this world." It's the equivalent for me of almost watching like Star Wars or something. You're going, this feels so alien to me, you know. But and I like being in that kind of wheelhouse, like having that kind of feeling. How about you, James? Have you heard or have you seen this before?
I hadn't heard of this, as you said in the introduction. It gets that mention in Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched. So, like you, I'd seen it on that, but knew virtually nothing of it. And my experience of sort of Korean cinema and things such as that is that where we live, and especially when I'd moved back to Bournemouth from London in the early noughties, it is an absolute cinema cultural graveyard down here. Yeah, Boomer. Ross will tell you, we don't really there's no such thing as like an art house cinema nearby. There's one, and it's rubbish. It's absolutely dreadful. So as someone who was a film fan, I was often aware that, you know, that there were good films out there, but there were just, prior to the internet, no real ways to watch them. And then when sort of like multi-region DVD players started coming out, a good friend of mine said, "Oh, there's all these really amazing Korean films, and I've got a multi-region DVD player. Do you want to come around and just watch them?" And that was I made a note of it before I started watching this. Of course, the original Old Boy, the film Joint Security Area, if you've seen that, which is not a horror film, but also a really amazing film, which is one that I often tell people about. Again, nothing to do with horror, but to do with a Buddhist monk, and it's called Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring. And it's amazing. It's really, really good. It doesn't sound like much, but trust me, it's amazing. And for a long time, I was aware that, okay, in South Korea, there's this extremely vibrant film industry. Yeah. And I think now for us, sort of like in the West, last couple of years, the success of Parasite and Bong Joon-ho, I think that he's really obviously comes to the fore. But, you know, my kind of experience is, I know that they've got this really amazing film industry, but the amount of times that I ever see anything Korean is minimal. Yeah, but also minimal. We now we've got all these streaming services and we can watch anything. We've got no excuse. But then I feel like we're just constantly being given so much other shit. Which you go, I ain't got time to watch anything, and I've got to watch bloody Obi-Wan Kenobi, otherwise people are going to spoil me about it, even though I don't want to watch it. You know, and then all this stuff gets left. Like for ages, The Wailing's been on my watch when it was on Netflix, and it's now on Prime. But for some reason, I thought it was a film about whales. Like, I'm dyslexic, so I thought it was. I saw the trailer, and I saw lots of rain, and I thought it was a man who goes to catch whales. But anyway, did you see a blowhole in the trailer?
No.
Was there any krill?
No, I'm afraid not. Okay. But yeah, I'm glad I watched it. So we said this is a very long, well, not very long. It's quite long for a horror film. Horror films, and particularly if we're watching on our podcast, we watch a lot of Hammer stuff, which is probably 90 minutes. 90
minutes maximum.
It's dead on, and then you're gone. So this has been quite a long. So we probably won't go through every beat of this, but we'll go through as we get
the broad plot.
Broad plot. So the film starts off with you see a shot of a chap fishing. Oh, before that, you get a Bible quote. It's always good to start a film with a Bible quote.
Yes.
And then you see a guy fishing. When you watch it a second time, you think absolute spot on metaphor for someone trying to lure someone in.
Yes.
But then we go to quickly jump away from that. You don't find out who that person is or anything. You go to the cop in this film. So I've written his name down.
Jong-gu, isn't he?
Yeah, Jong-gu. but I'm going to call him the policeman from that one in.
Despite the fact there's several policemen.
Okay, but
he is the policeman. Yeah, that's the way all mine is the daughter, the policeman, the shaman.
Exactly. I think you should never have a film with any characters who got the same first name. You should never have them any of them who look remotely similar. This is for me because I can't. You can't have more than 6 characters, and you can't have anyone have different. You can't have the same jobs if you want a little dullard like me to know what's going on. There was so many points in this film. I'm like, who's this? Who is this person in the car who's like dead and they're trying to bring back alive? I don't know who that is. So we have the police sergeant who's been called to go off to a crime scene, but then his mother-in-law, for ages I thought was his wife, said that he can't leave until he's had something to eat. So you see this character as being someone who is, henpecked, a little bit like, he's a bit of a wimp, a bit of someone who is always late to stuff. And
I was going to say that was the big thing, and sort of one of my main notes was that I thought it's really interesting to have a film where your protagonist is like mostly useless, like he's extremely flawed from the start, isn't he? And I thought, okay, that's
but however, it does give you an insight again into another culture's what they eat for breakfast. I'm gonna go, what's that? So many bowls on that table, and I was thinking, how much washing up do they have to do in this house? But one of it looked like he was eating like wet spinach, and I was like, again, it was just like, oh, I wonder what people in Korea eat for breakfast. But unlike you, Boomer, I didn't go and look it up afterwards. But yeah, he takes ages to actually get to the crime, and when he turns up, it's in full effect. There's police everywhere. It's raining.
Yes,
and it made me think of. Oh, he says, smashing his mic. It made me think of Jaws. I like with Brody at the beginning of that. He always turns up and everything's this is bedlam around him, and you're following him move through stuff which is already happening. It also made me think of Seven, because whenever they turned up at crime scenes at the beginning, it was always like the police are already there. It's raining. People are screaming, shouting. People are taking photographs. And I like that. I think it was a good way of getting into the action, particularly after a very sort of slow start with him.
It very quickly sets up that, or in those opening minutes. Apart from, I absolutely agree with you, Ross. It's like Seven in the fact that we are shown the one murder scene. It's kind of like it's like a nest, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really eerie, and that was kind of oh, okay, this is interesting. That we see kind of like this nest has been made, and of course the crime scenes, the whole, all of the locales just look like they're in absolute rack and ruin and have fallen into disrepair, and there's blood everywhere,
and buildings
mud and
falling
blood.
down.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think the big thing very quickly early on from those opening scenes, and the main thing I like, is that there's suddenly you get lots of different reasons and lots of different people saying what was going on, and you get some people saying, oh, well, I saw this suspicious Japanese guy the other day. And then somebody else says, oh, no, it's not got anything to do with that. It's got to do with, whatever.
Yeah.
That kind of ruining to it. I thought, oh, okay, rather than that kind of classic kind of Western film thing where you're led very quickly into, okay, here's what the mise-en-scene is going to be here. There was that feeling of, I don't quite know. Is this going to be like a virus-y thing? Is this going to be like a serial killer thing?
Or a zombie thing?
What's going on? Yeah, is it a zombie thing? There were lots of different kind of possible openings for it. And I did like that. And also the whole kind of shifting between, on a couple of occasions in those opening scenes, you're not quite sure if you're seeing a dream or something that's actually happened.
Yeah.
Because, for example, when early on, whilst our protagonist, the policeman, is at the police station with his friends, a figure comes and stands by the door, and they freak out. They're useless policemen and are just really, really scared. But then it cuts to him waking up, which is the usual cinematic language for what you just saw was a dream. And then I thought, okay, right, so that sequence was a dream. Only for him later on to go, like, last night, that was, oh, wait, that was real.
Yeah, that happens a couple of times as well.
That's interesting,
because you have a bit where you see another random character just wandering through the woods and seeing like a man in like traditional Japanese underwear, eating what you couldn't see what it was, but I think it was a deer. like with all the blood from his mouth, and then him advancing towards the to the random hunter, and then the guy waking up in bed. And again, you think, oh, was that a dream? But then later on, that person tells you that story, and it's yeah.
Well, I like that. I really like that because I think that's part of the thing that this film is doing, and there are so many themes in this movie, and I'm sure we'll get into the Japanese man later on down the road, so I won't get too far into that. But this film and this director is really challenging prejudices in a way through that, and I love how how he sets that up. Okay, I'll just spoil my take right from the very beginning. But the thing that I love about this is, you hear about this Japanese man, and it's pretty quickly on. I think that his partner, the policeman's partner, starts on that theory that everything started once this man arrived. And it's echoed throughout this. And so before you even meet this person, you're kind of leery about it. And the cool thing about that is, if you know about Asian history even a little bit, that the Japanese did some not very nice things to several of the other countries. And so they do have this ingrained prejudice against those people, and how they're evil, and they're not good. And any culture really does that. I mean, we see that in our own films, where it's the stranger who comes to town who causes bad things to happen. But I love how he does that. Like, he plays with your perceptions, so you don't know if what you're seeing is real or it's imagined, if it's a dream, or and it's all playing into these preconceived notions that you have, not only about the characters, but about filmmaking in general. Because like you had touched on, you see that we've seen it hundreds of times in movies where some scary thing happens and then the person wakes up and it was all just a dream, and so I love how he's playing with those concepts, both in real life and in filmmaking. And also, man, this movie had me from the very beginning, because there are a few things that I love in film. One is a police procedural, witchcraft, and Asian horror, and this has all three of them. But I love, like, the character. I don't love him because he's kind of a dick, but I love the characterization of our policeman, because they set him up. Not only is he bumbling and not real good at his job, but he's kind of a bad person.
Yes.
And that carries, on throughout the story, to where, he even tries to take charge, and he tries to, have an arc. And then it all ends up blowing up in his face, because he's not the hero that these people need.
Yeah. And he's not the hero you would expect to. So you're right. He almost tries to force his character's arc through from becoming the inept person who goes through a journey in order to end up becoming the hero. He tries to do that, and he fails miserably. And like, when he tries to stand up to some people, he loses in the fight, and he tries to get people to follow him, and the people don't follow him, and I think that's a really good point, actually. And also, I think what you was talking about, playing around with the idea of is this a dream? Is this happening? Also, is this hearsay? Because I think this also, it plays a lot on with prejudice, because there's a point where someone says, and also he raped a woman. So he's talking about the Japanese guy raping someone, and you see a kind of a snatch of that happening. But is it a case of that is just another rumor against an outsider? And I think, and you feel like, well, if the police knew he raped someone, why haven't the police arrested him? So therefore, maybe he hadn't done it. It's just another thing which the people in the town are trying to build up a case to ostracize and alienate, and those are two words which aren't what I was trying to think of. The word, demonizes this guy on the outside. It's just, but as I was watching this, I was thinking, but it's going to turn out he's not, because this is, I think about 15 minutes into it, I know where this is going. And they are going to make out, everyone's making out this guy's the baddie, but he's actually going to be the goodie. He's trying to save everyone. And little did I know.
Well, we know there are then more murders, aren't they? The kind of the town is beset by yet more kind of like really kind of gruesome and nasty murders.
Yeah.
And this talk that there's this mysterious Japanese guy that's come to town increases. And then without jumping too much, next, would you say kind of like his daughter, our protagonist, the policeman, his daughter then falls ill?
Yeah, well...
Or have I gone too far?
Just two things I would say. Some of one of the sites he goes to, he sees some... almost like dead flowers hanging up, which when you first watch it, you think it's going to mean something, and then you quickly forget. And then I would say the other thing, one of the scenes of one of the crimes, he comes across a woman, a young woman, sort of like stalking around, and she starts sort of telling him some stuff about what the Japanese man has done. He disappears, comes back, and so he goes outside, comes back, and she's disappeared. So immediately you think, well, mysterious woman, dressed in white, she's a ghost. That was in my mind.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think that.
Oh, okay.
I didn't think that at all. I just thought, oh, okay, mysterious woman.
Yeah,
but
you know what's
she's a ghost.
You know what's really neat about that particular scene, and I was hoping you were going to mention that opening scene where we meet the woman in white, as as she's popularly referred to, but she starts throwing these rocks at them, and then it cuts away, and then it comes back, and then there's, I don't know, a dozen rocks that are sitting in front of our main character. And, we've already talked about the, religious iconography in this film. And I will be honest, I didn't catch this the first time that I watched it, but, reading about it afterwards, they were talking about how that was the director's kind of play on the story of Jesus's tale about he who's without sin cast the first stone. And so what this foreshadows to the very ending of this film, and how he has to make the choice of which character to trust. And it's this woman who he doesn't end up going with. But it basically tells you right from the very beginning, this is our good character. This is our angel. Who you need to be trusting. I thought that was just brilliant. Once again, like I didn't put it together, when I read it, but coming back afterward, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so smart.
Yeah. I think this film is one of the, it's a film which does benefit from a second viewing. When you know what's happening, there was lots of little things sort of hidden in there. But I think it is a very good example of, well, I'll just test this out of you guys. When you first watched it, were you the same as me, thinking, they're painting this guy to be the bad guy, so therefore he's not going to be the bad guy? Because were you on that kind of journey with me? Or?
As in terms of the Japanese stranger?
Yeah.
Yes. I thought there was going to be way more to him. I just felt there was more to him than met the eye, obviously, rather than just it's his fault.
Yeah.
So it's too subtle for that.
Yeah.
But I didn't try and second guess it. I know you like to try and second guess stuff, Ross.
Yeah. So part of the crimes and the murders in this, the people who go on to become the murderers seem to get infected with like scabs and boils, and again, there's rumours. In one of the many eating scenes in this film, you're always seeing the main protagonist going somewhere and eating. At one point, he goes to see a friend, and he's eating inside a butcher's, which to me is just like the idea of eating something in a room full of like raw, stinking meat would put me off. But he sort of tells him a story about saying, my wife saw the woman who did the most recent murder at the public bathing house, and she was covered in boils and sores and all that kind of stuff. So we've got this extra sort of paranoia of there being an unidentified disease going on.
Or it might be the fault of mushrooms as well. They talk about that, they could have eaten some, if not hallucinogenic mushrooms, then otherworldly mushrooms.
So I've got to tell you a story though, mushroom wise. Okay. I don't know if I might have said it on another podcast. So recently it's been really hot here, and we've been keeping the shutters closed in our bedroom to sort of just keep it cool in there. But the other day I undid the shutters, and I noticed that we've got some plants in our bedroom, and in the soil in the plants we've got all these mushrooms growing in there now, which we hadn't seen because it's been so dark. which immediately grossed me out. That the fact I've got mushrooms growing in my bedroom, just thinking I'm breathing in all these spores and stuff. So the first thing I googled was, do mushrooms grow on humans?
Only if you're Swamp Thing, Ross.
Oh, Swamp. Well, the first picture. Well, do you know when you start typing in stuff on Google, it starts recommending. So it was like, do mushrooms grow in human ears? So that's the first thing.
Oh my god!
I looked at, and there are pictures of tiny little mushrooms growing inside people's ears, which really grossed me out.
Yeah. The policeman's daughter falls ill.
Yes.
After that, and there is a worry. First of all, it's not too serious, is it?
No.
Like they say, we've had to keep her off school and things such as that, but it very quickly becomes obvious that her illness will be the central thing of the film, and his attempt to cure her.
Well, they go to look, something we should mention. There's quite a lot of comedy in the early stages of this film, isn't there? Which is quite. Boomer, as our self-proclaimed Asian cinema expert,
here we go.
Is that something which you get a lot in Asia, where comedy, the mixture of genres, the mixture of like where something really serious might have a comedic element, or is this just something which is a trope of this particular director?
A lot of times that falls kind of like, I guess, within like it does within our subgenres. So it kind of depends on the type of film that they're really going for. South Korea has a lot more. They're a lot more well known for their comedy. So even something like Old Boy, James had mentioned earlier, is just dark, dark. But there are moments of comedy in that. So South Korea more so than Japan or Thailand or China. Put comedy in their films, but I mean the Japanese do it as well. But most of the time, that is for more lighthearted or crazy stuff. The Japanese are known for their just off the wall cinema, something like Tokyo Gore Police. But that's their idea of like a horror comedy. So most of the time, they, like a lot of the other countries, play it a lot more straight laced. Whereas South Korea, though, they do put these little bits of comedy in, or social commentary. The Host is another great example, which is a phenomenal horror film. But that movie is hilarious at times. So the South Koreans more than other countries will sprinkle that kind of stuff in.
So there's bits like he makes the hunter take him to the Japanese man's house, doesn't he? And then they end up falling down the hill and then bashing him on the head, and he's sort of wandering around like sort of pratfalling and stuff. And
also along with eating, this film features a lot of people falling down hills.
Yes,
he gets struck
falling down hill shots.
Yeah,
and then he gets struck by lightning. Like
does he get struck twice? I can't remember, but it's
he says that they should be struck by lightning, or that's what it said on my subtitles anyway. And then he is then struck by lightning.
Yeah, and then there's another bit later on with someone like quite a tension part of the film. Someone gets hit in the head with a rake, and then he's just walking around with a rake sticking out of his head, and they're all like, "Whoa!" and then having to break the rake off and stuff.
Well, not only that, like when he gets struck by lightning, like in the very next shot, it's him in the hospital, and it's his mom or wife or somebody that's there, and he owns this like tonic shop.
Yeah.
And, she was like, well, I can't believe this happened. There's something about it being unlucky, but, if he survives, they'll say it's because of the tonics. And then she's just like,
it's a very strange flavor, this film. The sort of the jumps in tone. It's refreshing because it's unique. You don't know where it's going to go on this. Yeah, so they do go to the Japanese man's house a couple of times. They search around, and this is one of the it made again felt a bit Seven-esque when they're looking around his house when he's not there. And again, he's just living in like a shed, basically.
Yeah.
And they find like a hidden room, don't they? Which is they find like a shrine, which you think that's going to be like the spooky part of it, but then they find a hidden room where it's got all pictures of all the different people, all the victims who have fallen foul of this, and also pictures of the crime scene, which you'd think, if you was a policeman, that's enough to arrest this guy at this point. One of the other policemen finds the shoe of this man's daughter in there, which he came to. Again, way more evidence you would need to arrest someone if all these murders have been happening. Is this the point? Does the dog attack them at this point? Or is that
At the same, or during this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the logic therefore being that, okay, well, his daughter is now ill. This guy's obviously got something to do with it. And the people that are either going mad, going crazy, what have you, he's the force at work here, isn't he?
Yeah. So then his wife, the policeman's wife, insists that or mother-in-law, insists that they get a shaman.
And
yeah.
A great philosopher once wrote, naughty, very
which is quite a long way into the film for this quite important character to sort of come into it. But he reminded me of the bad guy out of Karate Kid Part 3.
Let's get back to learning something that can do some real damage. Rule number 3. A man can't see, he can't fight. If you hit him square in the nose, he'll be blinded by his tears and choke on his own blood. Now here's how it works. You wait till your man is attacking. And when he's close enough, aside!
Yeah, but that would be face contact. I'd be disqualified. That doesn't help me
He
out.
ran into your fist. Not your fault, right?
Right.
Huh? Well, he can't continue. That means you win. You like that, Mr. LaRusso?
Yeah, I like that.
Good. Give it a shot. Let's try it over here. And your friend. Reverse punch. Ah! Visualize. This is not a bunch of sticks and pipes anymore. This is a living, breathing, fighting machine that wants to detach your head from the rest of your body. It's blood. So what? Make believe it's his. This guy wants to break you, humiliate you, stomp you into the ground. Now what are you gonna do about it?
No!
Then do it! Oh, yes! You did it!
I did it!
You did it! You nailed it! You nailed it! Oh, you're ready! You're ready! Oh, man! Yeah!
Sort of his demeanour, his look with like the little swept back ponytail. The
Ponytail.
the one he sort of but he's a bit of an arsehole. He basically just saying, you've got to give me shitloads of money and I'm going to do all these rituals and stuff. And the daughter's getting worse and worse at this point. Like he sort of he's checking her body over at night to see if she's got sores on her, and she has. And then the sort of camera goes up and the light goes up and she's sitting there awake and starts calling him a pervert for looking at his putting on his daughter's knickers in the night and all that kind of stuff. And I thought at that point his family were going to turn against him, but not. That's not the case. But she just basically just goes off. She's an excellent actress. Another example of amazing child actors in this film.
Well, I was just going to say that for me, the best sequence in the film, or the one that I enjoyed the most, is the two different, the kind of the exorcism, for want of a better word, when the shaman tries to perform that kind of, what's it, like traditional Korean exorcism, interspersed with what the Japanese stranger is doing. He's doing his own ritual, and just like the sound design in that part and how it looked and how it was acted, I thought that was really effective. As I was like, I've not really seen anything like that. This is great.
So for me, this is where I got a little bit confused, because it turns out, spoilers. We said the spoilers in this film.
Yeah.
It turns out these guys are working together. The shaman and the Japanese man are on the same side. But it implies that the shaman is putting a spell on the okay, I just worked it out now. Because essentially, talk us through it, because it's implying that he's trying to curse the Japanese guy, and it's implied that the Japanese guy is trying to like counter the curse. But then something happens, and then the Japanese guy sort of falls to the ground and is almost dying. But it occurred to me it's because the dad broke the circle, sort of thing, wasn't it? Because they've been told you can't go to your daughter, you've got to leave your daughter, and I think what's actually happening is,
and she's freaking out. We should point out as well. She's going absolutely mad.
So I think what's actually happening is they're both trying to put like the spell on her, and by him breaking the circle, actually sort of damages like the Japanese guy, because if the dad had stayed in there, it would that kind of it would have worked. But they sort of build this kind of nest around the girl, and that's something you see in some of the earlier
yes,
crime scene
in the creepy opening. Yes,
Yes.
The kind of the nest. That's
yeah. But yeah, it was good, and it was great to see, because we're so used to exorcisms just being like The Exorcist, just seeing all this, waving of knives around and all that kind of stuff.
That's the soundtrack, by the way.
It did remind me of
just making weird noises.
When I was in Singapore, I went to a part of Singapore, which is all like the Indian part, and I went into a Hindu temple, and it was the most overwhelming sort of thing, because it was like lots of banging drums, and there was a big fire. There was like piles of shoes, and people getting in my face all covered in makeup, and it was just smelt it, and I was like, God, this is so overpowering. I can't, I haven't used to going to sing, he's got the whole world in his hands at like his school assembly. That is just so far removed from any kind of religion I've ever come across. It was full on.
But that's like what you were saying earlier, Ross, about the whole kind of eating in the butcher's shop. How it's just like, that's just culturally different to us.
Yeah.
One of my many disastrous ex-girlfriends, her job had been at one point, she was a casino floor manager. And she said, and this was in the north of England, and she said that in the north of England, their biggest clients were people who were Chinese. And she said, like, there was this kind of elderly, kind of matriarch Chinese lady who would come in. And she said, she was absolutely irascible. And she would always just kind of like give her a side eye and all the rest of it. And then but she was like, so I tried to be super nice to her all the time so she could never complain or say that we weren't doing anything, anything by the book. And she said she went over to her one night and she went, is there anything else I can help you with? And she said, yes. She went, what is it? And she went, why is it that all you people smell of milk? Right? Because apparently, like, China, they don't drink milk, and the whole dairy thing is like really weird. So to them, to like Westerners, it's like, oh, you all smell of milk and you smell of dairy. So just saying about the butcher shop earlier, going to something which is a totally different spiritual setup for you. It's not that it's alien to us.
Yes, exactly.
It's incredibly normal to somebody else.
Even if I saw like a Western exorcism, I think I'd freak out by it. It's just the whole idea. Yeah.
It's mad. The whole idea. Just to reiterate, there are no such things as demons. No. What these people are people who are in need of psychiatric help. Yeah. So what you're seeing is something really mad, kind of really disturbing.
But imagine, what your neighbours, because all of this exorcism was happening outside. Imagine what your neighbours would think if you had that guy just waving his knives around and like hacking like
exorcism at number 32 again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have you put the bins out?
We'll skip our dinner invitation for next week. We're not going over there.
No. But it kind of implies that it's worked at that point, which is good.
Yes.
But then the dad starts trying to take down all of the like scrolls and candles and shit. But then the mum says, "Oh, you got to leave them up," or the mother-in-law, which you feel like that's a mistake. They should have taken it down because obviously these things are doing bad stuff, not good stuff.
Damage. Yeah. We get to that. I just think the other character worth mentioning is the priest. Because he ends up being quite a cool character. And I think one of the big themes of it, like as I was writing it down, I felt that like the two key themes of this movie were belief and obsession. Like, so, and I thought, okay, and it's the whole, and as we heard the director saying, as Boomer was saying, that was really interesting, the whole kind of cast the first stone and the role of Christianity and the role of faith in this is that they have, they have someone who is it established that he's a Catholic priest, or is he just priest?
I think he's a Catholic priest.
Yeah. So that, one of the characters, the brother of one of the other police officers is a Catholic priest, and they kind of get him involved in it, and it kind of and again, this is why it's so very not like a Western movie, and the fact that it brings in this kind of tertiary character, but then it also starts being about him too, the movie. He's all, towards what, as I was watching it, I'm like, he's almost in the movie as much as the protagonist, the policeman, is towards the end. And there's this sort of quite a complex juggling of the narratives. They bring him in as
a translator, don't they?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because he can speak Japanese, we're told. So, yeah, they think that he can speak to the Japanese guy for them and try and figure out what the Japanese guy is up to. But obviously, the more he speaks to him, the more that this whole kind of, what do you believe in? And it's like, well, you don't think I can be anything bad, do you? I can't be a demon. And then, so that story then, so I just just thought it was worth noting. We hadn't mentioned him yet. As we build towards the end, it's worth noting because he's in it a lot.
We've talked about how this is a long film, and and I love that how they are not afraid to flesh out all their characters. Which is, I mean, it's good and bad. I mean, if you don't have the attention span for it, then it makes for a really long movie. But I mean, something like I just watched I Saw the Devil yesterday. I mean, I've seen it before, but
cool.
Rewatching that one. And again, that's another one that's like right at 2.5 hours long, which seems to be their cutoff. And we can get at this and this thing where the perfect movie can be done in an hour 30, hour and 40 minutes, and then anything longer than that, then you're kind of feeling, you're running filler or something like that. But I like the priest as well. And I like that we get to spend time developing each of the characters and developing, like, you'd mentioned the daughter before, who just puts on a ridiculously amazing performance for somebody as young as
she must be about 8 or 9, mustn't she?
Yeah. And just, her acting is incredible. When her dad, first confronts her when they find the shoe, and that's, oh my goodness, I got so many thoughts running through my head. But, so one thing is, let me, try to be as concise as possible, not, end up on 15 different tangents, but, I like the time that we get to spend on each of these, on each of the characters and finding out who they are, what their motivations are, because all of it's really important for that finale that we get. And, also, it allows us time to, discover all the symbolism, which we've kind of mentioned in this film. And kind of like, I don't know if you call them Easter eggs or, foreshadowing or hints, whatever is to come. But one of the other things that I did pick up on in the film the first time I watched it, I didn't completely get it until the very ending, because kind of like you, I was thinking that they were setting up the Japanese man as a red herring. And I kept waiting for it to flip. Like, even when we went to the cabin and saw, okay, well, this is kind of some creepy stuff. But what was going through my head at the time is, okay, I understand he has pictures of all these people and stuff like that. And he's, this crazy ritual room. But I'm thinking it's like, it's going to twist, and it's going to turn out that he is trying to, try to perform some kind of ritual to end up helping the town. I just kept expecting that to happen. Yes. And then it didn't. And I was so happy that it didn't, because it just totally messed up, my, what I thought was going to happen. But the thing that I noticed going into it was, and again, more symbolism, but the woman in white, ends up collecting objects from these people and these families who are affected, as does the Japanese man. Whereas he collects everything from their lower body, and she collects all the things that she collects are from their upper body. So it's kind of like, an elevated and a lower thing. And again, like, it's all foreshadowing. It's all pointing to, the movie is telling you who the good guy and who the bad guy is in this movie. And I didn't pick up on that because I so believe that, I was just waiting for some kind of twist that never came, which is a twist in itself, I guess. Yeah. But it's telling you throughout the entire film who you can trust.
Yeah. Well, I think it was interesting with that second character. I think it says on my notes that her name translates to no one.
Yes.
Yeah. And,
I've read that.
It's interesting that she's in it quite a lot, but for me, I kept forgetting she was in it. It's almost like I kept dismissing her as not being important, but there was a kind of a bit of a because they kind of get like a mob together, and it's literally like a pitchfork sort of mob. That all the weapons they shove in the back of their pickup truck to go and get the Japanese guy. And this is the bit you said mentioned, Boomer, where he's setting himself up to be the hero at this point. This is where he's going to go and confront the Japanese guy.
Who's Ross? You should say who he is. You mean the policeman? The policeman. Okay. Sorry, yeah. They sort of chase the Japanese guy to the top of a hill after there's been like a zombie turn up with who they kill with. Yes. It's a bit like Shaun of the Dead kind of. Everyone is freaking out, trying to stop this guy biting them, hitting him in the head with big sticks, hitting him in the head with a rake and all that kind of stuff. And then the Japanese guy falls off of a cliff, and there's a bit there where he looks very vulnerable, and that's where I was thinking, he's definitely a good guy who's been wrongly maligned here, accused. Yes,
but then you get the no one ghost, the woman in white, sort of chase him through the Japanese guy through the woods, and he ends up falling down in front of their car, and they end up running him over. And then they, this is the policeman and his sort of cronies who are trying to get, was it the priest who gets bitten on the face?
He does.
Gets bitten on the face by the zombie. Mm-hmm. And they end up throwing the Japanese man over a cliff. So, and this is the point where the shaman kind of does a run for it, and he ends up trying to sort of leave the town. So you kind of feel, oh, is this the end of the film? Have they killed the Japanese man? This feels a bit of like anticlimactic. And if I'm honest, the first time I watched it, I didn't see who they run over. I just said someone's been run over and they've thrown someone over the cliff. I don't know who it is at this point. But yeah, this is when the twist happens, but not the twist you're expecting to happen. Okay, so the shaman is rushing back to the home of our policeman, where the daughter is still there, and he gets to the gate to their home, and the woman in white, the ghost is sort of standing there, and you get like a very subtle shot of these flowers which are over the door, and the shaman can't enter the house, and he starts pretty much vomiting, and he has a nosebleed. Yes. He starts vomiting. It's almost like Team America, the amount of the amount of vomit that has to come out at this point. And this, before you know what the twist is, you then see, oh shit, they've gone after the wrong person. Now that the Japanese man is dead, the ghost is the woman in white ghost has now been able to get into the house, and the who you assume is the good guy, the shaman, can't get in there to save them. So this is where they're thinking, oh no, they've killed the wrong person. The evil spirit is in the house. So he then tries to run away. He goes back to his shaman HQ and gets all of his Buddhas, and it's like that shop. Gear. Yeah, it's like that shop you went to, James, in
yes, in Gloucester.
What was the name of it again?
14 Gifts.
Yeah, it's like 14 Gifts. Yeah, yes. Gets all of his paraphernalia, puts it in his car, and tries to leave town. But then he's seen off by a load of moths attacking hitting the windscreen of the car, which I thought was quite a good effect on that one. Yep. And he's trying to ring the policeman to say, you've got to get back home because the demon, it's the wrong demon. The Japanese man wasn't the demon. The demon's the woman in white. She's in your house. He goes back, and he's about to go in and confront what's going on. But then he notices the woman in white down an alleyway, and he goes down there, and she's saying the shaman and the demon are in this together, and I've done a spell to save your daughter, but you can't go into the house until the spell's completed. This is my interpretation of what's going on. And that's when you have as Boomer was saying, he has to make a choice. He has to make a decision. Who does he believe? Does he believe the shaman who's rushing back there to try and confront this thing, or does he believe this woman in white ghost?
He makes the wrong choice.
He makes the wrong choice. Yeah.
He believes that the woman in white is the kind of like the demon, and he kind of believes what the shaman says. He goes into his house only to find that his whole family have been murdered. Yes. Sadly, and the insinuation is that his daughter now murders him too, or attacks him,
and then the shaman turns up, and he can walk through the door now because the flower has died. The flower, which is the protection of the house, and the thing we saw earlier in the film at the pig farm, which was obviously the same thing has happened before, and it's gone wrong before. And he goes in and starts taking pictures of all the bodies and everything. Goes back to his car,
to the collection,
yes, and all the pictures fall out the back. All the pictures we've previously seen in the John Doe murder room, in the back of his car. But then we have while this is all happening, we also have the priest, James.
Yes, he he confronts the Japanese guy, and the Japanese guy says, "Look, what I'm not a demon. What's the matter with you? You know, surely, you know, come and touch me. I'm flesh and blood. But you know, he can see that something is wrong. And as he gets closer to him, the Japanese guy produces a camera and starts to sort of take a picture of him. And then, you know, in between this time, it's cutting between this and the policeman trying to decide whether to go back to his daughter or not. And when it does cut back for the last time, we see that the Japanese guy is the demon. You know, he is a demon.
He's gone full on devil.
So, yes, and is kind of in the full makeup and what have you, in kind of Korean demon style. So the plot has revealed itself that, as we've been saying, it's both the Japanese guy, it was him all along, as it were, and we now understand the relationship between him and the shaman, and the no one, the nameless girl, was trying to help them all along. And then we don't do we see what happens to the priest? I can't remember.
No, we don't. We just
we just assume that it doesn't end well for him.
It just cuts. Yeah. And you know, something that's, you know, that going back to our bumbling protagonist, or a failure as a protagonist, and it's crazy because he fails at everything. I mean, he fails as, you know, as a father. I mean, there's one scene earlier on that, you know, it's kind of a quick scene, but it, you know, when he is in his rendezvous with his mistress or whatever, and his daughter stumbles upon him, you know, and he's trying to bribe her with all these gifts and stuff like that, and she's telling him, you know, I'm not going to tell Mom, and it's not the first time that I've seen this, you know, or seen something like this. So it's, you know, he fails as a father. He's a terrible policeman, because at one point, you know, if it's something like Seven, who, you know, you have Morgan Freeman, you know, who's just brilliant and stuff like that, and putting puzzle pieces together. Even if you don't have all the information to begin with, it's like, you know, you piece things together. And, you know, we'll go back to the creepy room with all the pictures. So there is a point when they realize that, okay, this woman is not, you know, really corporal. She's a supernatural entity in this, and he doesn't know whether she's, you know, good or bad or whatever. Okay, that's fair. But it's obvious that the shaman didn't take all those pictures. So there's somebody that's helping him. Mm-hmm. There's somebody that would have had to be, because there are scenes that were taken from the crime scene. That, you know, there are some that were taken before or after, or, you know, whatever. But there are scenes that were straight from the crime scene. So somebody had to be there, and it could not have been her. Mm-hmm. And he does not piece that together. Yeah. That it's, you know, she could not have been the one to take these pictures. It had to have been somebody else, you know, a la the shaman in this. Yeah. And that cave scene is intense. I mean, that is one of the freakiest images that I've seen in a long time in a movie. I mean, as soon as you get that full reveal of who the Japanese man is, like, the hair just stood up on my arms. It was really, really good.
It was brilliant. And I just want to say one thing: the performance of the policeman. There's a bit where he falls down. He said, "I just want to save my daughter," and he's completely beaten. And that really pulled at my heartstrings, because I can imagine being in a situation, and, you know, I've seen it with people with their children just in everyday circumstances where there's something. I know my kid is heading for like a disaster on this sort of thing, but I can't do anything about it to stop them. You know, it was heart-wrenching that he knew he was losing, and he just didn't have the power or the strength or the skill or the intelligence to do anything. And I think all the sort of weird humor and slapstick aside, there was a lot of very human, you know, universal acting in this. And for something which is very, very alien to this, you know, country mouse in Dorset, there was universality in there.
Absolutely. I think that's an interesting conclusion to reach, Ross. As you're saying, there's been so much that's been alien to us, but at the same time, themes which we all identify with, which, as you said, which is obsession and the need to do things to save your children. You know, whatever it takes, I must save my child. And questions of, well, who do you believe? And that leap of faith and the need to believe. You know, these are universal themes.
And making a choice and the fear of making the wrong choice is brilliant.
Yes.
So what do we think? Boomer, we give our films marks out of 5, 5 being the top. What would you give this film? What was your overall impression of The Wailing?
It's brilliant. And so gets very, very, very high marks for me. And I don't know if you kind of do, a wrap up or final thoughts, but I'll do that really quickly along with my rating. But so I would give this a 4.5 out of 5. It's really, really good to me. Not only is it really smart and well acted and well shot and scary on top of everything else. Not only does it contain a lot of elements that I love, and I know that we've kind of dived deep into this and talked about themes and elements and stuff like that, and there are some things that may be opaque to us as a Western audience. I don't think that you really need to understand everything to enjoy this film. I think that this film is very powerful and effective, even if you don't understand 100% of the things that's going on. So 4.5 out of 5 for me.
Excellent. James, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I went, like I said, going in knowing absolutely nothing about this whatsoever, but then I was really pleasantly surprised for all the reasons which I think we've discussed this evening. A lot of the thematic ideas, and as I said, like belief, leap of faith versus obsession, things like that. I still found it. I don't know. I think, could have been edited down a little tighter, maybe, but that's just my own absolutely pure subjective take on it anyway. I could totally understand why somebody else might go, oh no, it's perfect, it's perfect, it could have been longer, and I would absolutely say that's cool and that's fine. But for me, it was a real pleasant surprise, and thank you for recommending it, whoever it was out of you two who picks it out. But for me, it's a 4 out of 5 for me.
Fantastic.
Would tell people to watch this film.
It's going to be a 4 out of 5 for me as well. I would say really enjoyed it, really enjoyed going on a holiday to South Korea, and not. I think the only reason it doesn't get a 5 out of 5 is my own issues, because I early on thought I know where this is going. It started feeling like it was dragging for me because I was going, okay, I know what's going to happen here. I know what's going to happen here. Can't just get to the point. It's, when you're listening to a joke, someone you've heard before, and you're just waiting for the person to get to the end so you can laugh about it. Yeah. And then when it got to that point, it was like, oh, right, okay, I'm wrong-footed, and, maybe I should have been paying more attention all along up until this point. But saying that, there were a couple of, I think they went to maybe 3 or 4 different crime scenes, which all seemed quite similar. There were I think they went to the Japanese man's house 3 or 4 times, and it was like, maybe some of these things could have been condensed in order to get the runtime down a little bit. I think maybe it's just for the sake of doing a podcast, something a little bit more concise makes it easier for you to run through. So again, so all of these are my issues, not the film's issues. Reading some reviews, they say maybe it's a bit he just throws a lot at it in order, and it makes it a bit messy, but I didn't feel that. So it's definitely one to watch. 4 out of 5. Fantastic.
Hurrah!
So, James, it's your turn to choose what we're going to watch next. Have you done your homework?
I have done my homework, boss. I have. Okay. We are going to look at Possum.
Possum?
But the movie Possum, it is the directorial debut of Matthew Holness, who people may know better as Garth Marenghi from Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
I know nothing of this film.
Well, hopefully it'll be a pleasant surprise for you.
It's a good one.
Hey!
You've seen it, Boomer, have you? Okay, cool. Fantastic. So, Boomer, thank you very much for being...
Yes, man, thank you.
It was really good. Some excellent insight on there, and you are the most qualified Asian cinema expert that we know of, and I'm sure that you'll be called upon on many other podcasts.
Yeah, you're our go-to guy now.
Hey, anytime. This was a lot of fun, and thank you all for having me. This was great.
Brilliant. So, do you want to give us one more plug for your podcast before we go?
Sure. It's Podcast in the Woods. You can find us on all podcasting platforms, and the easiest way. So we have a link tree. So it's just linktree.com/podcast. In the woods, and you can find all of our links for podcasts and everything else that we do.
Cool, and they will be on the show notes as well. Before you go, just one question: where does your artwork come from?
That was Ian. Ian did our artwork for us.
Oh, nice! Yeah,
from the network. Yeah, I had no idea what I was going to use, and he did his artwork.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, hey man, is there any way you could do something for us? And it's brilliant.
Yeah, because it looks like something off an old computer game or something, doesn't it? And I was thinking, is this like an 8-bit game which I should be aware of or something? Have you lifted that from somewhere? But yeah, cool. I really like it. Excellent. Really good to see you, man. And and I hope to catch up with you again soon.
Absolutely, yeah. And we'll definitely have to have both of you on the show. I know we talked about it, but then we went through a format change, Ross. But yeah, we will get you on there soon. And James, you as well. Just
the only reason I didn't come on last time is because I thought I had not seen the new version of Evil Dead, and I didn't want to come on and go, I don't know. I don't know.
But you were the one who introduced Evil Dead to me in the first place, James. Remember when
old school Evil Dead, but not the new one. I haven't seen that yet.
Proper Evil Dead. Sorry. Yeah, but I think we talked about maybe doing Eden Lake and Deliverance as like a double bill. That would be
yeah.
Wicked. Okay.
I love that.
Well, until next time. Happy day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Until next time. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to the General Witchfinders present Folk in Hell, a spin-off podcast. Find more episodes of this and the main show wherever you get your podcasts. Visit generalwitchfinders.com for more details. Commune with us on Twitter at GeneralWitch1 and help support the show on Patreon.
Oh my God! Christ! No, dear God! No, Christ!
I saw Oasis in the old Wembley, and it felt like I was in a concentration camp. It was horrible. It was just being like slammed in there, and it was just the atmosphere, and it was just like
toxic.
Barbed wire, and like it was And this is back when I was super square, and it's like, everyone is on drugs in here. I don't like it. This is really stressful. And it was
what do you mean when you were?
Well, but I'm a little less. I'm a little less square now. But yeah, that's when I had my super square girlfriend rather than my super cool girlfriend.
Wife. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Wife. I think it's the.
And I was just thinking, someone's going to try and make me have drugs, and I can't get out of here because it's like it's all metal spikes and everything.
Wow.
Yeah. There we go. 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 There we go.